dispute with a Chinese company. The authorities in Nigeria have fiercely condemned the seizure of its planes, suggesting that Zhongshan had a sole objective of undercutting and scamming an African government. However, Amosu, who was the governor when the deal was struck between the state government and the Chinese firm, in a statement described the firm as an imposter. His statement reads in part: there are claims and counterclaims as to who between the two was the lawful representative of the original joint venturer, Guangdong Province, China, and consequently who had the right to manage the zone. Unknown to Ogun State government at the time, Zhongfu International Investment FXC merely sought to demarket China Africa Investment FXC and to covet the state-owned assets of the Guangdong Province in China, together with the zone ownership and management rights of their business rival. It's also not true that administration sent police or any security agent to harass, intimidate, or beat anyone. If there was any such situation, it must have been from among the disputing rivals in the bid to outdo one another. Stemming from the above, this matter of the Zhongfu International Investment FXC should be treated the way Nigeria treated the P&ID case. There is no basis for negotiation. Now, I'm going to just take a quick tweet from a Nefertiti. She says, Ogun State versus the Chinese is deeper than we thought. Seizing those presidential jets was unavoidable. Nigeria is notorious for violating agreements. This is why Oyibo investors have refused to pour FDIs into Nigeria. Listen to Pat Utomi narrate his own harrowing experience. Now, this tweet from Pat Utomi making the round. We'll just take a paragraph. It was a very long one. He says, in the same breath, the economist Pat Utomi alleged that the former governor of Ogun State violated a contract that he entered into with his government. In his tweet on his X handle on Sunday, Utomi claimed that the Chinese company he also faced a similar fate. Now, part of that tweet reads in part, it says, it was Governor Amosun's violation of contract terms signed by his predecessor that brought the shame of seizure of jets from the presidential fleet. I hope he's happy at his achievement, and the whole matter is karma at work. The Chinese were not the only victims. One prominent Ogun indigene allegedly committed suicide with similar Amosun action. I, too, was a victim. Now, I know you've touched on it. You were just in an interview with the former Justice Minister and Attorney General of the Federation, and he shed a bit more light on it. But what do you make of these comments coming from economist Pat Utomi?
Look, it's a free trade zone. This is not something complicated, but of course with Nigeria, all these other matters we have it. Lagos has a free trade zone. The Dangote refinery operates in a free trade zone. So this is something that should be straightforward. The company was contracted to come in here, bring its expertise, set up the infrastructure, and establish this free trade zone between Ogun State. Somewhere along the line, the agreement went awry, and so now we have to let the Court of Arbitration take the matter to the end. But there are questions. Our exclusive guest he had just now, he himself was saying, how could you have signed some of these agreements? So I hope it doesn't go sideways for Ogun State, because at this point, it doesn't look good for the country at all. And Pat Utomi has a point, even though they've replied him. He did say that we have a history of not enforcing agreements. You can see that in the FDI numbers. Yeah. So, yeah, there are questions as to how this thing was. But this is a free trade zone. It should be very straightforward and very simple. We shouldn't be here.
What about you?
All right, so just to balance things, the former governor, Ibikunle Amosun, has responded to Pat Utomi's claims. He said that, so what Pat Utomi had said was that they had obtained land under the, what's that board now, Odua Investment in Lagos, and that when, during Senator Gbenga Daniel's tenure. Then when Senator Ibikunle Amosun came and they're trying to claim that back, he cancelled the contract. But in giving clarity to that, Senator Ibikunle Amosun said they sent people to evaluate the land, and what Mr. Pat Utomi had claimed was about 200 million naira was not accurate, that they evaluated it to have been 50 million naira. In fact, they said 50 million. You couldn't have spent more than 50 million naira. And they tried, it was smaller than what he had claimed. So that in itself as well was not factual. So there were things around that. So I think in terms of balance, it's important. You know, the way say there are two sides, there are three sides to a story. One side, the other side, and then the truth. So it's important for us to highlight that. It's easy because of a deficit of trust to demonize administrations and say that, oh, governments are irresponsible, or perhaps just cancel contracts without going through due process. But it's also important to investigate the merit of the case and see what actually transpired. If indeed the land was overvalued by Mr. Pat Utomi, then the governor was well within his right to try and negotiate and do that.
Definitely.
But it doesn't take away that bigger issue around how we sometimes chase away investors by the way that we don't honor, contracts in some cases, and sometimes respect the rule of law. So sometimes that's a case definitely.
Definitely. I mean, I would have loved to come to you for because of time. If you can just comment very quickly so we go to the next story.
I'm sorry, I will not be quick.
You have to be quick. Cool.
With due respect, I think Ogun State is notorious for things like this. And let's be realistic. We have not even talked about the case of Olokola, free trade zone. Same Ogun State. People had invested in this free trade zone. It went out. In fact, Senator Bikuli Amosun recently was saying, don't blame me for Olokola. With Dangote refinery, this same Dangote that we have in Lagos, it was at the fallout of Olokola that he had to come to Lagos. Why is it always Ogun State? I yield the floor.
All right, then. That's a pertinent question. Well, let's move to our next story now, which is a tragic one. More than 20 medical students, as well as a house officer, were kidnapped